I've been riding the Lynx now for the last several days, and hopefully this video will give you some information that's useful if you are looking at buying it, or if you just want to check it out, that's also cool. Now this bike will require a little bit more assembly, more than other bikes, just because there's a little bit more involved in it. It's not really a bad assembly because QuietKat does give you really good instructions that you can actually read. And once you're done with the assembly, which took me a little bit over an hour, well, this is what it'll look like.
Now, as soon as I hit the streets with this bike, people were definitely complimenting it, asking who made it, and obviously wondering about the performance, which is going to be the key feature. There is no doubt this bike does look great. While riding it, you feel good on it, and it just looks good. Equipped with a 2-speed automatic shift hub motor, it puts out 1000 watts or 1440 peak and 83 newton meters of torque. It also has dual hydraulic disc brakes with oversized rotors that are 203 millimeters that should provide very good stopping power during our tests. The Lynx also comes with an upside down fork that has 203 millimeters of travel and is fully adjustable with 21 clicks of compression and 11 clicks of rebound damping to control the speed. The rear shock is also adjustable with compression, sag, and also spring rates if you need a heavier or lighter spring for rider preference. When it comes to the handlebars, the grips can actually be switched out very easily, the controls are easy to reach, and everything else is pretty simplistic. This bike is also equipped with a twist throttle on the right side, which so far seems to give good positive feedback with minimal delay. The Lynx would technically come with 3 light positions, on, running light, and then you do have the ability to adjust between a low beam and also a high beam, along with a functioning brake light, which this is actually really bright to let people know behind you that you are slowing down. The display is simple to read and shifting is easy, plus you have the ability to connect through an app to be able to lock the bike, check GPS location, and more. You also have the ability to remove the battery and swap it out with a fresh one, and this is easy by just unlocking it with a key. And the battery does have functionality with an indicator light that indicates the state of charge, and this does come with a 19.2 amp hour battery that should take about 8 or 9 hours to charge, and this bike ended up weighing just a little over 100 pounds.
Okay, so my ride is going to consist of me with about, probably 7 or 8 pounds of gear. So we'll say we're about 200 to 210 pounds with me on the bike plus the gear, and then we'll see how far we get.
We'll be starting with a 100% charged battery and 0 on the trip meter. Okay, so one test I like to do is ride the bike with no power to see, can you pedal this heavy bike just by itself if, say, the battery died? So I'm going to try to go up this little hill just to see how far I get, which I don't think I'll get too far.
Heavy bike. Yeah, so definitely not going to be able to make it up the hill without battery power, but that's pretty much the same with any of the more powerful heavy e-bikes. If you don't have battery, well, you're not going to make it too far.
Okay, so this downhill test will give me an idea how good the brakes are. Did they put the right size rotor on it? Are the hydraulic brakes actually good? So I've done this a lot of times, and believe it or not, some bikes I've had to use both brakes because I'll smoke the rear just going down this hill. So we'll see how well this will do. And so far it actually feels really good. Alright, well, that was actually a really easy downhill test, and you will be surprised how many companies put a really small rotor on a heavy bike, which is just kind of dumb, but this performed well. Now, one of the great things about the area that I live is the ability to be able to test these bikes in all kinds of different types of terrain, from hills and single track and more, and not to mention the scenery just looks great. Now, one thing about this bike, it likes to move. It's fun to keep it at speed, it loves to go fast, and it feels comfortable doing it, so why not?
Okay, so we're going to go up this hill. This is known as Heart Attack Hill or Heart Rate Hill, but by the time you get to the top of it, you kind of feel like you're going to have a heart attack. But this is a great test to see how much torque these motors have, because some of them I have to pedal and some of them you can just use throttle only. So we'll see how well it does.
Okay, so going up this hill, we'll see how much it actually slows down when we get to parts at the steeper grade. Now, sometimes these bikes, depending on what brand and if it's a cheaper model, I might only be able to go about 5 or 6 miles an hour. Now, so far the torque of this motor and the 1000 watts is definitely helping this stay at speed. As we come around this corner, it does get a little bit steeper, but we're still holding a good speed, 9-10 miles an hour, and back up already. So this is definitely not a problem for this bike to be able to hold a good speed.
All right, so pretty much flew right up that hill, which I figured it would, because this motor has 83 Newton meters of torque, and that's actually a lot more than other motors that you'll find that have 1,000 watts. And that's the problem, is that a lot of these bikes will advertise 1,000 watts, but they're only 60, maybe 65, or even 70 Newton meters of torque. And so it's a huge difference when you jump up your torque range, because that's what allows you to get up those hills a lot quicker and from a dead stop and more. So we'll continue on, but overall this bike is so far not having a problem with any of the hills I'm throwing at it.
Now, being that this bike is kind of a cafe moto type inspired, I found this bike very well balanced in and out of turns. It was very easy to maneuver, not to mention it just likes to go fast. Not that you can't just sit around and cruise, but this thing will easily cruise around at 25 miles an hour all day, and it's fun doing it. I found this bike to be a lot like a supermoto bike. Now, depending on where you are, I could hit speeds of over 33 miles an hour on a slight downhill and about 29 to 30 if I was really pedaling. Now, when it comes to normal speeds, right now I'm in Eco and I'm doing 23 miles an hour. You can see with the GPS app, it's actually really accurate, which is good, but the geometry of this bike is just very good. It's very well balanced. It doesn't take much effort for me to even pedal 27 miles an hour, and this is in trail position. And again, I don't even have my hands on the bars. I'm just pedaling normally, and this just is easy to ride. So it is a little bit more expensive, but this is also just some of the things you get when you buy a nicer quality bike, is that they're just built better. Now, one thing I did notice is going from trail to boost is that I don't really get any more speed. It's just going to get me up to speed quicker, because this bike really is only rated at 28 miles an hour, but if I really kind of hunker down, I could get it to 30 if I wanted. Now, when it comes to single track riding, the bike will do it, but it could use a set of more aggressive tires. But that's not really what this bike is for. For exploring and going off-road and checking out different areas, this bike shines. But again, when it comes to cruising the roads and just getting from point A to point B fast, it loves to do it, and it's fun doing it.
All right, well, to give you guys an update, so far I've gone about 21, 22 miles, and just to kind of let you know a couple things that I've noticed about the bike. Well, so far I've actually gone 25 and a half miles, and we're at 23%. Now, I estimated about 30 because normally that's how much I get when I do a ride like this, and I'm always having to stop and go for camera changes or just certain shots. And stopping and going will use a lot more power, but overall the amount of torque on this bike is great. You know, the seat I was kind of worried about because it didn't seem very comfortable when I was sitting on it, but actually it's not bad. This whole time I haven't really needed my bike shorts, which I kind of was regretting not having them, but it's actually not that bad. Torque in the motor so far, definitely love that. And the 2-speed gearbox, it's actually inside, it's a 2-shift. I wouldn't mind being able to adjust that on the fly. I think that'd be kind of cool, because going up hills, I think that would be kind of useful, so you could downshift early and then kind of help it along a little better. And then, you know, maybe your program shift points. It normally shifts around 14, 15 miles an hour, but so far doing good. We'll continue on.
Now, I did manage to go play at a skate park to check out the suspension and more, which it did just fine. But again, when it comes to this type of bike, it really just shines when it comes to cruising. This is really a head turner bike. It's really nice to cruise around, and it's comfy doing it. I really enjoyed the ride on this, and overall throughout my day, I had a lot of people talk and ask questions, and by the time I was done, I was able to get just over 30 miles, but we'll go over some closing points.
All right, well, now that you guys have seen the video, we'll go over some of the pros and cons that I did find on the bike. And obviously I did enjoy riding it, but there were a couple things that I was thinking that maybe I would have liked to have changed. Now, this bike will come with 2 kind of positions for you to sit, which this one here is definitely going to be for the shorter rider, but depending how short you are and what your height is, you can see how close my legs are up to the front where the handlebars are. So when you're seated in this position, the cockpit really gets kind of close and small. Now, if I get back here, this is definitely a lot more comfortable for cruising, but again, if you're a taller rider, 6'2", 6'3", this might be a little bit too short for you, honestly. So it does say up to 6'5" for riders, but I don't know, that might be close. Now 6'2" on down, I think definitely, and all the way to, well, probably about 5'2", 5'3", seems about right. Okay, let's just do the couple cons first that I found. One thing, I would like to be able to turn off that light, I think, because if I'm not on the road, I would like this actually to be off and not be drawing a constant power draw from the battery. I don't think it draws that much. It's probably like 10, maybe 15 watts, but still, that's a constant power draw that could be robbing from your overall distance you could get from the bike. Now, again, overall, the seat height isn't bad for the average riders. It would be nice to be able to bump that up just a little bit. If you could, you know, raise that up just even 1 inch, that would definitely allow for the taller riders to have more room for their legs. Now, the back rack is actually a nice option to be able to throw on bags and all kinds of equipment and gear. I actually wouldn't mind being able to maybe remove it and kind of having just a slick little fender thing out there and a smaller kind of a straight out rack. That's my own personal preference, really, just to give it more of a sleek design on the back. But you can strap a lot of gear on there, so that is kind of nice. Now, being that this is a pretty expensive bike, you would have thought that maybe they could have put a slightly better pedal on here, just something other than these. You know, these aren't anything different than you'll find on cheaper bikes. You know, again, that's me being pretty nitpicky on this, because overall it is really nice and there's not a lot of bad things to say about this bike. Okay, so pros, one of the things I do like is these grips. I've had these before on a lot of different things when I was racing jet skis, dirt bikes and more. These are easy to swap out and put new grips on, which is nice. They went with something that you can get. Now, this one being really short, you would just have to find that. But also when it comes to the throttle, this is awesome. The amount of sensitivity, this doesn't have a lot of lag or delays, so the input and the feel of it when you get accelerating and less, it just gives you a good feedback on it. So some of them you twist it and it's about a 3-second delay before it goes, and that's just kind of annoying. The display is nice. It also has an automatic dimmer on it, so that's also another cool feature. If you do have polarized glasses, like with anything polarized, it's harder to see some things, including that screen, so just a little note. And the seat does fall within the pro and cons. Again, I rode it 30 miles and didn't even need my bike shorts. Now, towards the end of the ride, I was getting a little bit stiffer, but most people don't do a full 30 miles. If you were just out for a day doing a quick cruise and only went 20, no shorts needed, seats fine. When it comes to the tires, they did great. I didn't have any issues with those. Being overinflated, because I do have them at max pressure, they were a little bit loose on some of the single track stuff that I was doing. I would typically run these a little bit less, but I was kind of going for more of a cruising and max mileage. Now, overall, the suspension for me actually did really well. I do have it on its softest setting just to kind of as a cruising style. I did actually bottom it just a couple times, and I turned the compression up a little bit, and it did make it better for that. So me being 200 pounds, I was actually surprised it was set up to be able to handle my weight right off the bat without being having to change a spring rate on that. So. And now that you guys have seen this bike, I'm curious, what do you think about the styling overall? I mean, I like the design. I think it's definitely pretty cool. Now, this bike is a little bit more money. This is going to come in at $4,000, but you're getting a better motor, you're getting better brakes, you're getting a better build quality all the way around. So that's what you're paying for. And whenever you buy anything that is going to be a lot better, it's going to be, you know, almost twice the price is usually how that rolls out. So let me know what you guys think. If you are looking for something a little bit cheaper, you can check out this video right over here.